perhaps heaven. Hello, I'm the deaconess Kim Hyore. Is that a heaven? This is coming from the very small things. For example, when I collected those those some shares of the candies and letting the letting the shares in a uh, aligned, and sometimes we are working together to with our older wisdom, and I feel like that I can see the God is with us. In 2025, we went to the Sangchon for services helping the small churches. And there are so many people from our church, and we did a lot of things. And with the knives, we cut grasses, and also we work for the farms, for the manors, and I was the receptionist for the uh, for the medical services, and all the people who were working over there with the hats, with the straw hats, and I felt like that the God is with us with the straw hats, and somebody was holding a small pieces to the watermelon, and I like that he God is holding this one for us. So for the first time, it's just something simple one because this is a rural work, and let me try. And even though I started with this simple, simple mind, but I felt that God is with us. God is working for this one. In 2023, I was sick, and I realized that I have to do what I am able to. So heaven is something like the treasure, which is hidden in the field, and in the and the people who found the treasure went home and they sold everything, even his refrigerator. They bought the farm field, and I don't have anything to sell, but I have something, some tools, small tools, small shovel, and I hope to do when I am able to do. So for me, the heaven is something it's small, but it's very big. My small uh, things, and it has been used, and then I can see the joy of that God's the grace is going to be exercised onto him. So God's kingdom, all above the text in the parables of the Jesus, and the secret of the heaven from our ordinary lives. Shalom, shalom. Today, thank you for the precious testimony of the community deaconess. So heaven looks like, it sounds like that it's not that amazing about, even though it's so miracle things. That's amazing, the enormous event about the kingdom of our heaven and kingdom of this world. But this is something from the mustard seed sowed for the at the beginning. But somehow we don't sow the seed because it's small. So something which makes us challenge it is because it's small, and by nature we humans, we mankind, uh, the look for the something very big. So all the problems in our human history is something to try to make it bigger. Uh, let's let's look at the nature, and the small one is not going to be accepted. And the small things in biology, small things the chance has a smaller chance for survival, and small clan can be easily eaten by the predators. So for the industrial revolution comes from the ability to produce more, greater scale. S- So, for example, if we have more money, we have more choices, and we are trying to make our business a grower, and enterprises tries to expand the occupants of their product. Why the battle happens? Why battle happens between the countries? It's a tragedy of the smaller power. The reason why the Ukraine was invaded, and in our history, so many small countries has been invaded, and those people who has been colonized has the common things because absolutely they don't have the power to protect. So psychology uh, explains this way. So human likes a big house, big car, big company, big city, big country, and a big brand, a big number, and we are attracted onto this one because that really symbolize the chances of survival and the chance of the stability. But what is the definition? What is the definition of small? Is the deficiency and so instability and the danger. And in our language, it also they proves this way. So we can say that the big success, big people, big help, big love, big joy, and the big dream. But so for our history, for our accumulated the knowledge for 1,000 years, we regarded the big one as a positive way, the small one is a very smaller one. So sometimes we have a small power, and we have fear. We don't have the money. We are poor. We don't have this. We don't have the bigger house, and we are uncomfortable. We don't have our smaller company. Then we are occupied. We don't have the knowledge, and we deceived. So people, the civilization wants to overcome this kind of the smaller one. So not only we are just simply obey the respect those big one is but the big one is is helping us to survive. That's the reason why we respect the bigger one. So for ourselves, heaven is something like that. This is something more stable, something comfortable, and something good. So there is one thing good in terms of heaven, but today's someone is something very very strange. So Jesus Christ said, take an example, take the parable of the heaven is something like the mustard seed which was sown in his field. And sometimes we may be disappointed with Jesus Christ, and we may be disappointed with his description of the heaven. And think about that. Let's say I have a five heavens, and I have a heavens attached to my body, but that five heavens has been disappeared even at the first service. So where are the master seeds? Jesus Christ said that the heaven is something like the mustard, and this has been the some surprise for his disciples, and his disciples expected that they are expecting kingdom of God, and but what they saw was It's something which can be fallen easily, and smaller one. But they are expecting something the kingdom with David and which wins over the world. But Jesus Christ destroyed their expectation. Also, the Jesus Christ destroyed our expectation because he showed the example of the mustard seed. When we are talking about the heaven, but why we are worried? But even without the gospel, Jesus is telling, we are disappointed and we are worried because Jesus Christ took an example of the smallest one, and Jesus Christ said that this is the smallest among all the seeds. So just because know that this is one of the smallest seed of. This is already well known to the people who are living at those times. For the Gentiles, it's an example of the to describe something very small. So in our Korean, the expressions something like the rest tail is something very small. So the way the Jesus Christ is telling is something different what those Gentiles are thinking at those times. So some a lot of people concluded that like our face, such as a mustard seed, is something. Even though our face is smaller, it should be okay. But what Jesus is telling us is that not it's not telling that we our face can be smaller, but is that a problem? Even though our face is smaller, but is it going to be a problem? I think do you think this is the smaller smaller heaven is a problem? So mustard seed is small and we cannot see, and that is mustard seed which can be easily lost. Why God? Why God started heaven enormous scale? Dear God, why don't you bless us with the enormous blessings? That, that's our mind, and that's our issue. That's also our uh, worries about this one. While the disciples of the follow the Jesus Christ, they got the faces, and they thought that this is the person we are relying on. When Jesus is planning the last journey to the Jerusalem, they went to a village, and those people neglected the Jesus Christ. They were so furious. How come they neglected Jesus Christ and they persecuted Jesus Christ? And the Jacob and John said that, "Dear Lord, let's call a fire from the heaven and let's punish them." So they are saying that there should be the absolute punishment of God has to be there. There has the what God's rule ruling of the God has to be example. We we may think this is a very very stupid thing, but we may actually think about that way. This is not just our mind is not really wanted the mustard seed. How can you see the heaven heaven from the small thing? That is the source of our worries, and we are pretty much uncomfortable with what God is doing His work. God started Abraham. God started Israel from the Abraham, and God selected David as a king, and then from the similar manner, it Messiah was born, and then from the name is 12 disciples. He changed the word. We understand, we know that, but it is very uncomfortable for us to see that God is changing. God is starting from the small one. We are very very uncomfortable, uneasy. Is it going to be work? Is it possible? So if we start from something big, then we may think this is not the God's kingdom, but our kingdom. So a lot of our countries are something similar. So think about your country. It became bigger. There are so many big countries, and who owns this one? That's mine. And even though we have a bigger countries, but we are not living in the kingdom of heaven. It's a good lesson that the small ones are very valuable. However, in this parable, God, please remember, God is telling us, wants to us to know that God uses His own way. So He wants to know that we understand that His own way. So let's see the verse 32. This is the smallest among the older seed. But when it grows, it is the largest of the garden plants, and it becomes a tree, so that the birds of the air come and perch in its branches. So Jesus used the two distant words, the small and big one. In the in the Greek words, the small one is small is used as a microteron. It's the smallest one, and the bigger is mejon is the biggest. So Jesus intentionally the showed two things and the smallest and the biggest one. So Jesus is not really trying. Is saying that it's okay to be smaller, but what Jesus is emphasizing on is this is a paradox of the God's kingdom. Uh, so start making something bigger from the bigger one. We may regard that we may sometimes regard that as not God is has done, but Jesus is telling us that God's kingdom doesn't have to be starting from that one. That's the message. Why our life, our faith is collapsing, and small prayer, small the small devotion, and something like that. So we small act of obedience. We may think even my small prayer is it going to change it? So God is saying that this is just the beginning, but we regard them as the end. In this example, when Jesus is telling us, showing us the mustard seed, and He is not telling us that we have to see the small the small nature of the mustard seed. So for the disciples' eyes, they are the people who are even smaller than mustard seeds. So they may challenge Jesus Christ when Jesus showed the mustard seed. Is that Jesus Christ? Is that the country you are talking about? When in our life with the faces, we may you may have some doubt about that. Is that the country God is telling us in this situation? In this situation, Jesus is telling us the heaven It's something like the mustard seed. So the fact is, what do you see out of the mustard seed from the Jesus Christ? Our this our disappointment is from the smallness, but God judges out of the life. The reason why Jesus selected the mustard seed is not because it is small, but it is alive. So Jesus changed the world by sowing the life. From the life, it is his kingdom is being expanded. I blessed from you, the life starts. Life is sowed because the life is integrated and they concentrated into the seed. So the mustard seed is the story about Jesus' story. We are thinking that why he is changing the world with his almighty power. So sometimes, a lot of cases, a lot of times we just understand this message was that the smallest one is okay, but Jesus Christ is from the Nazareth. He's a he's a he's the son of the carpenter, and around him, not the emperors, but fishermen. So people ignore him. How come? How come they can make anything out of that? Their poor background, the poor power, tiny status. So even they ridicule Jesus Christ when Jesus Christ is in the cross. He he they ridiculed Jesus Christ. You just jump out of the cross. So the event of crucifixion is something small event in some remote uh, the ignorable some places. Let's see the verse 32. So though it is the smallest of all your seed, yet when it grows, it is the largest of the garden plants, and it becomes a tree, so that the birds of the air come and perch in its branches. So it became the tree is something like become growing. You have to remember these sentences. So God is growing. God is letting us to grow from the small ones. There is there is an expression from the Bible, and so that the birds of the air come and perch in its branches. So the Gentiles remember the Old Testament because we can see it from the Ezekiel. So there is a tree that God planted. There were patches. So that message for them, whatever their situation they are, but there are dreams. We are going to we are going to be a big nation. We are going to the nation which covers cherishes all the nations in the world. This is sounds the same way as the expressions. There's an amazing thing in Jesus Christ's parable. And so in the Old Testament, this is coming from the trees, but Jesus Christ used a small seed. So when God is doing, then it's going to be so the big trees. sometimes, oftentimes, we make the decision ahead of our God. So we only believes that what we saw, and we ignore what God is trying to do. But what God is telling us, because there is life in the seed, we often see that as a size and a small one, but God is telling us the issue is our focus. You have to change your focus. And if we have a focus in a wrong way, then we just give up after we just saw see the small the tiny size of this one. But in this parable, we have to we have to question to ourselves, what kind of mustard seed we are sowing in our body. When you go back, to your life, in your children, in your life, in your family, there has to be a kingdom, heaven. And then we have to question to yourself, what kind of seed you are sowing in your mind. Maybe your adolescent, the kid, shut off the the door, and went back to their room. And we have such events, accidents, that we may not see the heaven. So we have to question what kind of mustard seed we are sowing in our mind. So the mustard seed might be as a small prayer in the morning. Somebody may argue that, are you going to change anything out of this one? But God's kingdom started from that way. That's what Jesus is telling us. Maybe the one chapter of the Bible we read every day, or just one sentence of the Bible, because Jesus is not really just didn't really say the bigger one, but just so told about the mustard seed. And it might be the prayer you are doing for your kid, in the night on while we are putting our hands on our kids' head. So, dear Lord, this kid is the one you love. Please bless him. That is the the event we are starting the heaven, because that is alive. How can you start the heaven? And the small greeting may start the heaven, and or so, because of the mustard seed, because it's small, we can easily participate, because it's not a big, it's not a gigantic. If the size is too big, there are many things we cannot do it. But the heaven is something like the mustard seed, so we can easily do. And God is telling us that at the very point of the mustard seed, the God's kingdom, heaven is starting. And that is a message that if this grows, then it's going to be heaven. And don't judge anything out of the sizes. Don't judge yourself as the current status. So sometimes we look like smaller. Our church may look smaller, but out of that, God is telling us that this time is a seed. This is not the end. We don't despair because it's a smaller, because it's a beginning. But God is still writing a story for us, and He is telling us that it's okay. It's going to succeed. The heaven is heaven is some place where the smallness is not going to be neglected. Don't give up because it is small. Don't be ashamed because of it is small. Don't compare because it is small. And that is the message for the disciples. That is for the tax collectors. That's the message for the poor women. So after time goes by, that seed is going to grow. So I'm giving you again the parable of the mustard seed. Today you have to sow the seed. Tomorrow you have to sow the seed, and every day you have to sow the seed, and then you have to plant small love, small forgiveness, and small love for us. And God is making His kingdom out of this small one. We don't know. It doesn't depend on the how big the seed is going to be. It's not upon your hand, but God is going to grow them. The God's kingdom is not definitely small, and God is great who works inside for the mustard seed. What Jesus is telling us is not for you to do something big, but you have to start from the small one. So, so let's talk to people next by. Please sow the seed which has a life. And again, and what kind of seed you are going to sow tomorrow in your life, in every moment. The heaven is not going to be made out of the big event. In His plan for the life, your life is going with the mustard seed, and I believe that is going to be realized in your life, and the he- the heaven is going to be the trees which uh, embraces all the living things. Let's bless to each other. Let's bless to your family. Let's bless to your children. To your life, to your people nearby. Blessing. Today, let's think about the minds of our Father. Jehovah wants to give it a blessing to you. He wants to protect you. Jehovah put His faces onto you. He wants to give it graces and peace for you. Jehovah wants to give you blessing to you. He wants to protect you. Jehovah, He turns faces to you. He wants to give you the graces and the peace. You are so precious and you are so holy. And then God regards you as such. This promise in your life is going to be realized sincerely. Those those plentiful out of the earth and the divine things from the heaven. God is going to give you and God is protect you. He's going to give you the graces for your soul uh, to be grown, and He's going to lead to the peace. Jehovah wants to give you blessings, and He wants to protect you. Jehovah turns His face to you. He wants to you the grace and the peace to you. Our God, thank you are so precious and so holy. He's going to keep His promise in your life sincerely. Out of all the from the earth and from the precious one from the heaven, and God protects you, and He has a mercy to make your soul to be good and leads to you your peace.